Welcome into the New York Jets versus Buffalo Bills preview matchup from a Vegas perspective. We got Oskheim Sports and Mike from ASA Sports, sportsmemo.com and wagertalk.com. Oskheim Sports, Jeff, welcome in, man. Interested in your opinion here. We got the New York Jets at the Buffalo Bills, 39.5 being the total, minus 6.5 here, the Buffalo Bills at home. What do you think in this AFC East matchup?
Hey, Drew, thanks for having me on today. I really like this Buffalo team. It's obviously they have a Super Bowl caliber roster. The only issue is Josh Allen. I mean, they need a quarterback. I don't understand why Buffalo drafted him. He did improve his second season. He went from 58.8% completion rate to 52.8%, but he was still the league's least accurate starting quarterback in 2019. Allen had the NFL's fourth worst QBR on passes that traveled more than 15 yards in the air. So he's still having difficulty hitting the broadside of a barn. And he turned just 49 of his 141 third down throws into first downs or touchdowns. And Buffalo is also looking at regression, which is they go from one of the easiest schedules in 2019 to one of the most difficult. They missed the fourth fewest starts as a team in 2019. So that's really health luck. It's very likely that they're going to have more injuries this year. That typically balances out 50-50 over the course of the history. And they also fumbled 1.5 times per game on average last season, yet only lost a half a fumble a game. And fumbles are 90% random, and they tend to regress to 50-50 historically. Now, from a technical standpoint, one of the reasons why I like the New York Jets in this game, plus the points, I think the market has 6.5 right now, Drew. I'm looking at waiting for it to hit 7. If it hits 7, I'm definitely going to be on the Jets. If you look at week one divisional underdogs, they're 35-16-1 against the spread since 2010. And then since 2014, all week one divisional underdogs are 21-5-1 against the spread, covering by 6.69 points per game. And here's another tidbit I came across last night. Since 2002, teams that did not make the playoffs the prior year are 36-12 against the spread against divisional opponents that did make the playoffs. And actually, the Jets qualify under a subset angle of mine with that system. That's a perfect 10-0 dating back to 2002.
Wow, nice system play there.
Yeah, so I really like the Jets plus the points. I'm really hoping it hits 7. I think it will before kickoff.
Okay, so liking the Jets here, and you do think it will at some point, maybe Saturday, Sunday morning?
I do. I would wait. If you like the Jets like I do, I would wait till Sunday morning. The public is really hitting Buffalo because they do have a Super Bowl caliber roster, but they need a quarterback, and I just don't see them covering 7 points in this game.
Okay, he's Jeff at WagerTalk.com. Follow him on Twitter at Oskheim Sports, and we got Mike at ASA Wins on Twitter, sportsmemo.com. Mike, what are you thinking here? Jets plus 6.5, 39.5 the total in this AFC East matchup.
Yeah, Jeff and I are kind of on the same page here. I think my first thought was when I first saw this number, I thought that seems kind of high based on the history of this series as far as the numbers go. I look back, last 21 meetings, the average spread has been 3.5 points in this game, in this situation. Only above 7 3 times in the last 21 meetings. So I think it's a little bit high. It's almost as if they've got home field factored in for Buffalo here, even though there's going to be no fans. I think home field is going to be very minimal with no fans. And if they didn't factor in home field and the line's at 6.5, 7, that means they have Buffalo at what, 9 or 10. If there were fans, I think that's way too high. I think this number's too high. We're leaning Jets. I'm in the same situation. I'm looking for 7. And actually, I saw a few 7s. That was a couple days ago at some offshores, back to 6.5. So it wasn't at 7 very long. I think it probably will go to 7. At that point, we lean toward the Jets. I don't trust Allen as a quarterback, as Jeff said. Lowest completion percentage among starters. He wasn't very accurate in college. He had the highest percentage of uncatchable passes thrown last year. He gets digs at wide receiver, but he's still throwing passes, so I don't know how much that's going to make a difference. Buffalo last year, in their 17 games, they scored 20 points or less 11 times. That's tough to cover when you're getting up around 7 when you're not scoring a lot of points. And against the Jets defense that was kind of underrated last year. You heard a lot about the Buffalo defense, but the Jets defense was right there with Buffalo in yards per play, yards per game. They just didn't get a lot of publicity. Offensively, Jets at the bottom in everything last year. But with Darnold at quarterback last year, when he started, they actually had a winning record. They were 7-6. He averaged right around 20 points per game when he was the starter. The 3 games he did not play in, they had barely averaged 7 points per game. So those stats were skewed a little bit. They're still not very good offensively. I think the Jets can do enough to stay in this game. And divisional dogs early in the season, as Jeff mentioned, very, very good. One of our systems is week 1 divisional dogs only. Week 1 divisional dogs dating back to the early 2000s. If they did not make the playoffs, as Jeff said, this is week 1 only for us against a team division that did make the playoffs. 23-6 against the spread for the dog. Last year there were 3 teams that fit into that: Green Bay, Washington, and I believe the Giants. Green Bay and Washington covered, the Giants didn't, but it's been a very good system for us. Gets to 7, we're going to lean Jets in this game. Well.
Some heavy stats, heavy trends there, guys. Great job. And all pointing here towards the New York Jets here, and lowest total on the board and catching near a touchdown. It's kind of a good combination there, guys. So for Mike and Jeff, WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com, I am Drew Martin. Guys, remember, $2 Tuesday at both sites. The top play from the top handicapper discounted to just $2 each and every Tuesday. SportsMemo.com, WagerTalk.com. Welcome into the Louisiana versus Iowa State game preview here. This is a 12 noon kickoff on Fox. We got a total of 56.5 here, Jeff. With Iowa State, the Cyclones laying 11.5 at home in Ames against arguably the best team in the Sun Belt here. Kind of a fascinating handicap here. What are you thinking in this one, Jeff?
Yeah, it's interesting, Drew. Thanks for having me on, by the way. Iowa State is a sexy pick in the Big 12 this year, but I'm really bullish on this Louisiana squad. If you look at what they did last year in 2019, they had a record-setting year, both offensively and defensively. They set school records in yards per game and points per game. Their defense set school records for points per game allowed at 19.7 points. They had a school record 11 wins. And they won 5 true road games for the first time since 1970. So this Louisiana team is road tested. They're a veteran-laden team. Their offense is loaded. They bring back their starting quarterback, Levi Lewis, who completed 64% of his passes for over 3,000 yards. And you look at what Lewis did last year from November 1 through the end of the regular season. He completed 64% of his passes, 17 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. They also have a loaded backfield on offense that combined for almost 2,000 yards. They are both back. And interestingly, they have a very underrated offensive line. It's the best offensive line in the Sun Belt, in my opinion. The offensive line led the nation in the fewest tackles for a loss in 2019. Now, if you look at this Iowa State team, Iowa State is synonymous with bad luck. If you look over the past few years, over the past 4 years, the Cyclones are 6-11 in games decided by 6 points or fewer. They've had a minus 13 turnover margin in those 17 games. And in games decided by 3 points or less, there are 12 games. They're 4-8 with a minus 7 turnover margin. Typically, that will regress back to the mean, so it's going to be 50-50. They're going to have better luck, presumably, in 2020. But their defense is suspect. They allowed over 77% of drives inside the 40 to score last year to their opponents. They gave up over 300 points for the first time since 2016. I really like what Bill Napier is doing here for Louisiana. Take the points with the Ragin Cajuns over Iowa State, and I would not be surprised if there's an outright upset.
Follow him on Twitter at Oskheim Sports. He's Jeff, WagerTalk.com. Mike, throw it over to you. I mean, Sunbelt team on the road here in the Big 12, catching double digits. I kind of like what Jeff had to say. Good quarterback, good head coach here. They've recruited well for Sunbelt standards, but Iowa State is a darling as well in the betting markets, it seems, coming into this year. Kind of a fascinating matchup. What are you thinking?
Yeah, it's really an interesting matchup. Jeff hit on a lot of key points there. Louisiana, 11-3 last year, was one of only 20 teams in Division I that won 11 games or more out of 130 teams. And as he mentioned, a lot of offense back this year for them. Their quarterback, their 2 running backs that combined for 2,000 yards. We really like their head coach. Napier's an excellent head coach. He's a very good offensive coach, and he took over 2 years ago. Louisiana, they were averaging 27 points per game, had a losing record. 2 years later, they're up to 38 points per game, an 11-3 record. He's got a good pedigree coming from. He was the offensive coordinator at Clemson.
Yeah.
Under Dabo, and he was a wide receivers coach at Alabama under Saban. So he's come from a good line of coaches, good offensive mind. We're leaning over in this game. It's 56. Iowa State should be good on offense. As Jeff mentioned, the defense is suspect. They gave up over 300 points last year. Offense, they've got Purdy back, their quarterback. He's a potential first-round draft pick coming up next year. He put up a pile of points last year. They averaged 32 points per game at Iowa State. It was a little deceiving, actually. They averaged 36 points a game through their first 11 games. And in their last 2 games, they scored 17 against Kansas State and 9 against Notre Dame in the bowl game. So I think Iowa State offensively is coming in with a chip on their shoulder. They're going to put points on the board. I think they will at home. They played one Sun Belt team last year at home. Louisiana Monroe. Final score was 72-20 in that game. I'm not expecting that here. But Iowa State at home should score some points. And if you look at the Louisiana offense, as Jeff mentioned, everyone back, 38 points per game, great offensive coach, as I mentioned. The one thing I look at their defense last year was really good, but the one Power 5 team they played, Mississippi State, put up 38 points on them. And Mississippi State went on to average 27 points on the year. They weren't a great offense, but they put up 38 on Louisiana last year. I think both these teams score with a projected total of 56. That's a final score of around 34-22 in favor of Iowa State. I think Iowa State scores more than 34. I think Louisiana scores more than 22. I like the over in this game a little bit.
And Mike, just to come back at you real quick here, the start to this season, with everything that happened in the offseason, and the unders have kind of cashed more than the overs here to start. Does that scare you at all?
That's kind of the common theme coming in. Not as much practice time. I think maybe in games like this where the quarterbacks are back, the skill players are back, the offensive coordinators are both back, I think that it's not going to be a situation in every game where it's going to be a lower scoring. I think when everything works like it does here with those players back and the OCs back, I think that will tend to lead to the over, especially in a game like this. But that's something you do have to watch for sure early in the season.
Yeah, great stuff from Mike. Follow him on Twitter at ASAWins, sportsmemo.com. We got Jeff Oskheim at Oskheim Sports on Twitter. Great stuff, guys. It's going to be a fun matchup to watch. And also, guys, remember, $2 Tuesday at sportsmemo.com and WagerTalk.com. Each and every Tuesday, the featured handicapper top play discounted to just $2 at both sites, and you can double dip. Best of luck with your bets, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Drew.
Thanks for having us.
Take care, Mike.
You too.